Joined now by Ethan King, who's Security Operations Team Lead NZ at Bastion Security. Thank you very much for joining us, Ethan.
Thank you very much.
What are the key ways in which Bastion's offerings have evolved in recent times, and what do they tell us about the cybersecurity environment that organisations now live in?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and I'm not sure how much you know about the history of Bastion. So Bastion originally, about 10, 15 years ago, there were three companies. NZ Security Services, founded by Simon Howard, sort of the grandfather of offensive security within New Zealand. Quantum Security Services, a very big GRC shop servicing a lot of government and very large enterprise, right? And then Helix Security Services that did a bit of offensive, a bit of GRC, but a large amount of audit for government clients. And then about 3 years ago, they saw a problem that a lot of boutique firms within New Zealand didn't have the scalability to serve the coming needs of the industry. So they merged together into forming Bastion. Very shortly after that, they acquired Cassini Cyber Threat Intelligence, so a New Zealand homegrown cyber threat intelligence SaaS platform, which was doing some very, very cool and amazing stuff in proactive defence. So that came all together and they formed Bastion. And then over the past 3 years, we've scaled, we've grown, but we've also looked across the ditch. So rather than Australian companies buying New Zealand companies, it's actually the reverse. New Zealand's gone into the Australian market and picked up some very specialist players within the managed service space, so the defensive security space, detection engineering, threat research, and then some other GRC firms. And our most recent acquisition has been Australis, the largest independent security architecture and engineering firm within Australia. So over the last few years, the challenge that Bastion's really been gearing towards solving is that scalability and the deliverability of experts to organisations when they require it.
Fantastic, great, thank you very much. So scaling, for example, of enterprise AI has really been an important theme for the whole event. What are some key steps that organisations must take beforehand, though, to ensure they can scale safely from a cybersecurity perspective?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways that it can be done, but it's really that fundamental piece, knowing what data you hold, where that data's going, and what's the classification of that data. Is it PII, is it commercially sensitive? Because all of that will drive your requirements around the use of AI and the use of AI safely. And it's a technology, people, and process trifecta, for want of a better word. So you've got the processes that we're seeing organisations come to the party with, and we're seeing great technology vendors come to the party with technology, but it's that user awareness piece and the coaching piece around enterprise AI. What can you do with it? What can you use it for? Where can you put your data? That's a little bit lacking at the moment. So the other two controls, the policy and technology, are having to compensate, which there is some good technology and there is some good processes that can compensate for that, but it's always that human piece, it's always that soft skill piece around enabling the use of new technologies, whatever they may be, in a safe and scalable way that not only works for the person, but for the business as well.
Bastion co-moderated a workshop alongside SOCradar yesterday on threat-led defence when your attack surface keeps shifting.
Yeah.
Could you just briefly explain what threat-led defence is and why it's important?
Yeah, threat-led defence or threat-informed defence is a very interesting topic, and I'm on the defensive side of security, and cyber as a whole likes to borrow terms from the healthcare industry, from the military and things like that, but what we're actually doing with threat-informed or threat-led defense is actually borrowing some capability and some visibility from the other side of the coin, the offensive security side, the pen testing, the external attack surface, because what an attacker sees is actually definitive. If you say that you've got 500 assets, but if I can, from outside your organisation, look in and see that you've got 700, you've got 700. Your asset registry is not up to date, or people have moved on, or something's not quite right there and it's slipped internally. It happens, we're all busy people, companies and technology grow and shrink and things change, but it's that external in view. So we do still have the internal out view, but it's around taking that external in view and piecing it together into a 365-degree visibility, so we can actually say, if I was going to attack you, this is what I can see, this is what software you're running and things like that, and then that way we can tailor our defense to specifically provide protection and detection coverage around the specific software, the assets that you're running, the versions you're running. If you're not running a very specific version of firewall, you don't actually need to potentially worry about some of the vulnerabilities that are coming out. You may need to, because it might affect your end customers or people you do business with, but if it's not actually relevant to your business, and it's about prioritizing the relevancy of the information and the threats, because the landscape's so large. So it's about making sure you're looking after yourself first, right?
Okay, great, thank you very much. How specifically does the synergy and partnership between Bastion and SOCradar work to protect your clients, and what are the keys to it being an effective partnership?
Yeah, so SOCradar is a brilliant piece of technology. We use it quite effectively in two main aspects. So dark web monitoring, so looking for credential breaches on underground forums, Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, and things like that, of anyone that is sort of reposting credentials or information that they've gained through phishing or through other information breaches, whether it be the LinkedIn information breach or LinkedIn scraping, and all that information that can be used to build a piece and a picture of your company or even a attack path in. So we use it to great success there. But the other aspect that we use it in, which I actually think is under talked about, is brand protection and reputation protection. We all trade on reputation. New Zealand's a very small country. We all know Jim Bob down the road and whether or not he's a good guy or not. Versus if someone gets access to his Facebook account or his business's Facebook account, or is impersonating them and starts putting misinformation out there or something that doesn't align with the brand image, in New Zealand, in the economy that we're in, it can actually really damage Jim Bob's business's reputation. So the brand protection piece we're actually seeing a lot of interest in, and we're seeing great success in it, in protecting New Zealand businesses from small and medium enterprise all the way up to large enterprise, because we do trade on reputation, we trade on our network in this country. So that's actually a really key piece of it as well.
Interesting, thank you. Can you share any brief use cases of where the Bastion SOCradar partnership's been leveraged to the greatest effect for clients?
Yeah. So New Zealanders like to care about their customers, right? We've all got end customers at the end of the day. So we had a financial institution that wanted to go above and beyond for their end customers. So they're using that piece of software to not only look at any threats to their business from a staff impersonation or staff credential reuse, but also their end customers as well. So they're actually using their contact center and their emails to go out to customers and say, hey, we've seen a little bit of suspicious activity regarding your account. We've seen things that your passwords may be on the dark web for sale and things like that. You actually need to potentially look at changing that password, and if you're reusing that password elsewhere for your banking logins or anything like that, you need to do that as well, because we're 2 degrees of separation from end customers, but it is that user education piece and that herd immunity. We are all better off when we're all better protected. So that use case is actually really, really unique, because this customer is going through and actually bettering their own relationship with their end customers as a result of the relationship that they have with Bastion and SOCradar.
Great, thank you. What's the single biggest challenge your customers are facing today?
That's a very interesting question. And if you would ask me in any other year, I'd say it depends on the customer and the sector. But that is all collapsed down into one thing at the moment, and that is patching and vulnerability management. So with the rise of AI and some of the rumors out there about Mythos and various other frontier models, which I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit later, but patching and vulnerability management is now a bigger problem, for want of a better word, or a bigger concern than it was historically. Organisations would have internal frameworks that say you must patch within 7 days, 2 days, 4 days, 14, but the threat landscape is continuously evolving now. Things are coming out every day, and it's no longer just we can patch according to our governance cycle. It needs to be risk aligned. Are we using the software, so threat-led defence? Are we vulnerable to this? Do we have any mitigating controls? Do we need to do this now, or can it wait a couple of hours or a couple of days? We're seeing exploits through our Cassini Cyber Threat Intelligence Service 30 minutes after a proof of concept or something gets talked about online, whether it be on X or Twitter or Reddit or a sort of Hacker News forum, 30 minutes after we're seeing that story break, we're seeing attempts targeting New Zealand organisations. Historically, that may have been a couple of days, but because threat actors have essentially scanned the entire internet, they've got a Excel spreadsheet or a database or a CMDB of everyone that's running this particular software, this server, this version, what they're vulnerable for. So as soon as something comes out, they just filter in Excel and start targeting. So it's really that patching piece and that vulnerability management piece and the prioritization of them, which does come down to the discovery, know what you've got, and understanding that piece of information and the fundamental piece we talked about earlier. But it's no longer just we can get around to it when our change control or our governance requires it. Yes, change control and governance is absolutely still critical, but we need to move faster.
Related question, what's the biggest myth or misconception that you come across in the marketplace around being secure?
So there's a couple. One is that you've got to spend a very large amount of money to be secure, right? There is no silver bullet. There's services and products out there for a range of organisations, whether it be sector specific or organisation size specific. Spend doesn't actually equate to how secure you are. You've got Fortune 500 companies that spend probably more than New Zealand's entire GDP on security and still have a bit of a problem. It's about finding the right solution for your business, but also making sure it's risk aligned. Years and years ago, we used to have the problem where clients would say, you can't take anything offline, like there's going to be a business impact. I actually like to flip that on its head and go, cool, what's the actual impact of me taking the CEO's laptop offline for 5 minutes to deal with a threat? The CEO can't work for 5 minutes. Versus if I don't, you could be facing, hundreds of dollars in fraud or thousands of dollars in fraud, or the CEO is being impersonated and he's talking to customers and vendors and damaging your reputation, or they go throughout the environment and then you've got days and days of downtime. So the 5 minutes in terms of a business risk and a business impact is actually significantly smaller than not taking action, because all of the response actions and containment actions that we can do and are capable of doing are reversible easily, right? So the business impact isn't actually the action I'm taking. The business action impact is what would happen if we did it. So there's that side of things. Then the other one is the current AI marketing hype around frontier models and mythos and vulnerabilities and how it's going to breach the world, right? So what we're seeing in the data that we've got at the moment is that AI is 100% having a play within the threat landscape, but not how people think. So AI is not necessarily inventing novel attack methods, and I'll caveat that and I'll clarify that one. So AI is reviewing old pieces of code and identifying new vulnerabilities and exploits and new attack paths that weren't there before. So on that regard, yes, there are some new novel attacks being identified, but it's not inventing a new category of attack or anything like that. It's still remote executing code or privilege escalation or buffer overflow or phishing. The things that we already are facing now, it's just new ways to get to that category, for want of a better word. But where we're really starting to see it is AI-empowered attacks. The same way that businesses are using AI to speed up operations and gain efficiencies and things like that, and do more with less, we're seeing attackers do that as well. So taking the scanning and sort of the everyone running the software, right? If we take that from a business point of view and go, hey, I want to do outreach email and contact all my customers running this software. AI can do that, it can draft it and things like that. So if we put our attacker lens on, AI can 100% be used there to identify those customers, sort them by priority, and then help deliver and increase the frequency and scope of those attacks. Spear phishing is a great example that I've been using recently. Spear phishing used to actually be a little bit of effort. You had to research a target, you had to do some cyber stalking, find out what's going on with their life and where they're at and what's they're likely to engage with. You had to spend a little bit of effort. Now with AI, what we're actually seeing in the spear phishing market is we're seeing the AIs crawl LinkedIn, crawl their Google pages, their Facebooks, and identify the information at a scale that would have taken tens, if not hundreds of people before. And now we're seeing phishing emails go out to entire organizations or a lot more people than just the CEO or the head of engineering. So it's that scale. And then from the defensive side, rather than dealing with a couple of these cases a day in an organization, we've now got hundreds of them, if not more, right? So it's that scale and response and enabling threat actors, just so the same way that AI is actually enabling businesses in defensive security as well.
Fantastic, very interesting, thank you. Last question for you. How do you expect the cybersecurity space to evolve over the next 12 months? Or in other words, what are we going to be talking about this time next year?
I think patching and vulnerability management. I think we're going to see a collapse of the historical and traditional patching cycles and move to a more patch as when required. And we're going to see governance and accreditation and certification and patching cycles and cabs all change to reflect the more agile method that we're going to have to adopt in defensive security, rather than the historical sort of set in stone monolithic schedule.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much, Ethan. That was great.
Yeah,
really interesting. Scary.